The knocking came at 2:17 a.m., 3 sharp raps that didn't belong to the wind, didn't belong to a neighbor, didn't belong to anything good. Daniel froze in the dark hallway, his 5-year-old daughter's fever still warm on his palm from where he'd just checked her forehead. The house was silent except for the ticking kitchen clock and the distant hum of a truck passing on the highway. Then came another knock, slower this time, deliberate, as if whoever stood outside knew he was awake, and waiting. Have you ever felt that moment when the air changes? When something unseen shifts, and your body knows before your mind does that life is about to split into before and after? Daniel Harper hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in months. Being a single father wasn't something he'd trained for. It was something that had happened to him like a car accident, sudden, violent, irreversible. One day he was a husband who believed in forever. The next, he was standing in a hospital corridor under fluorescent lights while a doctor spoke softly about aneurysms and probabilities and how sometimes there's just nothing anyone can do. Claire had been 32. Since then, the house had carried a hollow sound. Like grief had weighed and pressed against the walls. Toys were still scattered across the living room rug. A pink sweater hung on the back of a chair where Claire had left it the morning she collapsed. Daniel had never moved it. Another knock. He swallowed and stepped toward the door. His heart pounded hard enough that he felt it in his ears. His daughter, Lily, shifted in her bedroom down the hall and murmured something in her sleep. He hesitated. What would you do? He flicked on the porch light. Through the frosted glass, he saw a silhouette. Small, slender, not a man. He unlocked the deadbolt but kept the chain on and opened the door a few inches. A young woman stood on his porch, soaked from the rain that had started sometime after midnight. Her dark hair clung to her face. She couldn't have been older than 22. Maybe younger. Her hoodie was torn at the sleeve, and her hands trembled, not from the cold alone, he realized, but from something deeper. Please, she said, her voice breaking on the single word. I just need somewhere to stay tonight. Her eyes flicked past him, scanning the street as if expecting headlights to appear. Daniel tightened his grip on the door. I'm sorry, he said automatically. I can't. Her shoulders flinched like he'd struck her. I won't cause trouble, she whispered. I swear, I can't go back there. Back where? A car turned onto the street in the distance. The girl stiffened. Panic flashed across her face. Raw, unfiltered, animal. Please, she said again, and this time there was something in her voice that hit him low in the chest. Not manipulation, not performance, fear. He thought of Lily sleeping down the hall. Of how small she looked in her bed without her mother's presence in the house. Of how the world had already taken too much from her. I have a daughter, he said, more to himself than to her. I won't go near her, the girl said quickly. I promise. The car rolled slowly past the house without stopping. The girl's breath came out in a shaky exhale. Daniel closed his eyes for a second. Claire would have opened the door. He slid the chain off. Just for tonight, he said. The girl stepped inside as if crossing a border she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter. Rainwater dripped from her clothes onto the hardwood floor. The house suddenly felt smaller. Bathrooms down the hall, he said. You can dry off. I'll get you a towel. Thank you, she whispered. Her gratitude felt too heavy for the moment. He handed her a towel and one of Claire's old sweatshirts before he could think too hard about it. When she disappeared into the bathroom, he stood alone in the hallway, staring at the closed door. What have you done? He walked quietly into Lily's room. She was curled on her side, cheeks flushed with fever. He brushed a hand over her hair. I'm right here, he murmured, though she was asleep. When he returned to the living room, the girl was standing awkwardly near the couch, swallowed in Claire's oversized sweatshirt. It hung off one shoulder. She looked younger now, more fragile. I'm Daniel, he said. Emily. Her voice was steadier, but her hands were still clenched. Do you want tea? He asked, unsure what the right thing was. She nodded. In the kitchen, the kettle's whistle felt too loud. Daniel poured hot water into 2 mugs and slid one toward her at the table. Is someone looking for you? He asked carefully. Her eyes dropped to the steam rising from the cup. Yes. The word lingered between them. Police. She shook her head quickly. No, not the police. That answer did not ease him. Emily, he said slowly, I need to know if I'm putting my daughter in danger. At that, something cracked in her expression. I would never hurt a child, she said, and the intensity in her voice made him believe her. Silence stretched. I left, she said finally. I left someone I shouldn't have been with. Her fingers tightened around the mug. He doesn't like when people leave. A chill slid down Daniel's spine. Boyfriend? He asked. She nodded once. Older. Another nod. How much older? She hesitated. Old enough. There were bruises along her wrist. Faint. Yellowing at the edges. Daniel's jaw tightened. Have you ever seen evidence of something terrible without hearing the full story, and somehow you already know enough? You can sleep on the couch, he said quietly. In the morning, we'll figure something out. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. I won't forget this, she said. You don't owe me anything, he replied automatically, not knowing how wrong that would turn out to be. Upstairs, Lily coughed weakly. Daniel stood up. That's my daughter. Is she sick? Emily asked. Just a fever. Emily hesitated, then said softly, I used to babysit. The words carried something almost wistful. Daniel studied her face. There was a sadness there that felt older than her years. He went upstairs to check on Lily again. When he returned, he found Emily sitting on the couch, staring at a framed photo on the mantel. Claire's smile radiated from the picture, sunlit, alive. She's beautiful, Emily said. She was, Daniel corrected, before he could stop himself. Emily turned. I'm sorry. He shrugged, the motion stiff. Life happens. Does it, or does it break you in ways you never fully repair? Emily lay down on the couch with a thin blanket. Daniel turned off the lights and stood in the hallway longer than necessary, listening. The house settled into uneasy quiet. At 3:46 a.m., headlights flooded through the living room window. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He'd fallen asleep sitting upright in the armchair. A car engine idled outside. He stood slowly and moved toward the window without turning on any lights. A black SUV sat across the street, watching. His pulse hammered. He glanced at Emily. She was awake, frozen. She had seen it too. They found me, she whispered. The SUV doors did not open. It just sat there, waiting. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the vehicle pulled away. But not far. It stopped at the corner. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. You said it wasn't the police, he said quietly. It's worse, she replied. He turned toward her. Emily, what aren't you telling me? Her eyes shone in the dim light. He's not just some guy. His family, they have connections. Connections to what? She swallowed. To people who don't ask questions. The weight of that landed heavily. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. You need to call someone. A friend. Family. I can't, she said. He cut me off from everyone. Of course he did. Lily began crying upstairs. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran to her room. She was sitting up, flushed and disoriented. Daddy, I'm here, he said, lifting her into his arms. Her skin burned against his chest. Downstairs, a car door slammed. Daniel's heart stopped. He carried Lily to the window and looked through the slats of the blinds. The black SUV had returned. And this time, someone stepped out. A tall man in a dark coat. He walked slowly up the driveway. Each step deliberate. Emily stood in the middle of the living room, trembling. That's him, she whispered. The knock on the door was calm. Controlled. Not desperate. Not angry. Confident. Daniel felt Lily's arms wrap around his neck. Daddy, who is that? He swallowed. I don't know, he lied. The knock came again. Slower. More patient. Have you ever stood on the edge of a decision that could